A withering drought is still baking much of the West, which means states like Nevada are looking for ways to more carefully manage water supplies.
In northern Nevada, gargantuan gold mining operations pump enormous quantities of fresh water every day, which has caused some critics to ask whether mining for gold is the best use of a public resource that grows more precious each day.
The I-Team traveled to Elko County to find out how much water the mines use and what the long-term consequences might be. Senior investigator George Knapp has our story.
Barrick and Newmont are slowly sucking these aquifers dry.
In a conference room at the Elko Airport, critics of the mining industry compare notes.
And it's not just a drought, this is an extreme drought. And so every drop is going to be priceless.
Environmental activist Bob Fulkerson has butted heads with the mining industry many times in the past. He knows that in Elko and much of northern and rural Nevada, mining has historically enjoyed broad support. It's ingrained in the culture and economy and is the largest employer by far, generating thousands of jobs in communities that might otherwise shrivel. But Fulkerson thinks the current drought and predictions of a more dire mega drought to come offer a unique opportunity to change public attitudes.
That means that long-term, every drop of water is going to be more precious than gold. And that to grow our food, to sate our thirst, in order for there to be enough water for wildlife, we're going to have to do a much better job planning. And as long as these gold mining corporations are in charge of the planning for the water in these pit lakes, the public's going to be screwed.
It's no secret that Nevada's gargantuan gold mines, large enough to be seen from space, operating on a scale comparable to the Egyptian pyramids, pump a lot of water. Hundreds of millions of tons of earth material are removed from gigantic pits to find microscopic flecks that are eventually poured into gold bars, worth billions of dollars each year. The pits are so large that trucks as big as houses look like toys. Because the pits are dug deeper than the water table, massive pumps are used so the work can continue. At one Nevada mine, they pump 68,000 gallons of water per minute, 24 hours a day, which has led to alarming headlines like this one.
You're taking it away from one of the natural sources.
A recent study by UNR hydrologist Dr. Tom Myers adds heft to the argument. Myers estimates that the largest gold mines have pumped so much water in the last 25 years that it's caused a substantial drawdown throughout the basin. How much water?
Since 1991, according to the data from the state engineer, they've pumped 3.8 million acre feet to keep the pits dry and to keep the underground mines dry.
To put that in perspective, it's more than 10 times what Nevada is allowed to draw each year from the Colorado River.
And it creates a drawdown cone. Drawdown cone is the change in the water table. Water table lowers, you call that drawdown. That is a deficit.
Myers worries about the long-term consequences for the Humboldt River watershed and the aquifers below. If you pump that much water, it has to be drawn from somewhere. Critics say big mining hasn't had to answer tough questions.
It's been trust us, it's been don't ask too many questions, it's been we've got this handled. You know, you run along now.
Water's a legitimate concern, and I don't question people's motives in raising water concerns.
Managing water is one of George Fenamore's top priorities each day. He admits the Barrick Cortez mine pumps an enormous amount of water and that it had to lower the water table by 1,000 feet. But he gave us a tour of the vast facilities which funnel the water back into the aquifer.
It's just being relocated from one part of the aquifer to another part of the aquifer. And what that does is it preserves the water balance in the basin.
Barrick acquires water rights from its neighbors, ranches for instance, and then pumps it back to its original owners so it can be used for agriculture. Thousands of gallons per minute do not get returned, he admits, but the law allocates water to its highest use, which is usually expressed in economic terms.
I think this is a pretty good use of things. If you look at what the economics of a mine are relative to the other economic use of this land and this water, the comparison is pretty staggering.
George Knapp, 8 News Now.
One undeniable consequence of large-scale mining is the creation of so-called pit lakes, gigantic holes that will eventually fill up with millions of gallons of fresh water. What happens when the gold is gone and the mining companies leave? Tomorrow, the I-Team takes flight to get a bird's-eye view of some of Nevada's largest pit lakes.